Get out. You don't belong here." Chelsea didn't whisper it. She said it loud enough for the wedding planner to hear, loud enough for the florist arranging the $8,000 centerpieces to pause mid-stem. She stood in the doorway of the grand ballroom at the Riverside Manor, her white satin robe catching the afternoon light, looking at me like I was a stain on her perfect day. My son, Austin, stood behind her. He didn't meet my eyes. He just looked at his phone, scrolling, his thumb moving in slow circles like he was waiting for an Uber to escape an awkward party. He didn't defend me. He didn't say, "Mom, what's going on?" He just stood there, a 28-year-old man in $400 loafers I had bought him, choosing silence. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I just turned and walked out of the ballroom, my heels clicking on the marble floor. And as the heavy oak doors closed behind me, I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. Before I tell you exactly how I made them regret that moment, drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. I'd love to know who's part of our community. I sat in my car in the parking lot, staring at the list of pending charges on my screen. The wedding was tomorrow, Saturday, June 10th at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Everything was paid for. Everything was perfect. And everything was about to collapse. Let me take you back 6 months, to the night Austin brought Chelsea home for the first time. I should have seen it then. I should have noticed the way she scanned the room, her eyes calculating, cataloging, pricing every piece of furniture like she was a home appraiser preparing a report. But I wanted to like her. Austin was my only son, my late husband, Andrew's legacy, and I wanted him to be happy. Chelsea was beautiful in that high-maintenance way that costs money to maintain. Blonde highlights that needed touching up every 4 weeks, nails that clicked on wine glasses, a wardrobe rotation that required a walk-in closet, and a personal shopper. She worked in marketing for a startup that sold organic dog food subscription boxes. She made $52,000 a year and spent like she made $250,000. That first dinner, she sat across from me at my kitchen table and smiled. It was a beautiful smile, straight white teeth framed by matte pink lipstick. But her eyes didn't smile. Her eyes were doing math. "Austin tells me you're an accountant," she said, cutting into the roasted chicken I'd made. "I own an accounting firm," I corrected gently. "I have 14 employees." She nodded, chewing slowly. "That's amazing. It must be so stable. So reliable." She paused, letting the words hang. "Not like these tech startups. Everyone thinks they're going to be millionaires, but most of them crash and burn." I should have heard it. The way she dismissed her own career while eyeing mine. The way she was already measuring the distance between her income and my assets. But I smiled and poured more wine and told myself she was just nervous. 3 weeks later, Austin called me. His voice was tight, excited, the way it used to sound when he was 12 and asking if he could get a new video game. "Mom, I proposed." She said yes. I felt my chest tighten. "That's wonderful, sweetheart. Congratulations. We want to get married this summer. Like, soon." Chelsea's parents can't really help financially, and I know weddings are expensive, but I was thinking maybe you could. "Of course," I said. I didn't even let him finish. "Of course I'll help. We'll make it beautiful." And I meant it. Andrew had been gone for 4 years, and the grief had settled into a dull ache I carried everywhere. But this was joy. This was the future. This was my son starting a family, and I wanted to give him everything. Chelsea had a Pinterest board. It had 847 pins. She showed it to me on her phone during our first wedding planning meeting at a coffee shop downtown. She scrolled through images of cascading orchids, vintage china, string quartets, ice sculptures shaped like swans. "I know it's a lot," she said, not sounding apologetic at all. "But a wedding is a once-in-a-lifetime event. It should be perfect. It should be a reflection of who we are." I nodded, taking notes. "What's your budget?" She laughed. It was a light, tinkling sound. "Oh, I don't really do budgets. I just know what I want, and we'll figure out how to make it happen." That should have been the second warning. But I ignored it. I told myself she was young, that she'd never planned a large event before, that I could guide her gently towards something reasonable. I was wrong. The venue was $22,000. The Riverside Manor was a historic estate with gardens that rolled down to the water, marble columns, crystal chandeliers in every room. Chelsea walked through it like a queen inspecting her palace. She didn't ask the price. She just pointed and said, "This one." The catering was $18,000 for 150 guests. Chelsea wanted a 7-course tasting menu with wine pairings. When the event coordinator suggested a simpler 4-course option to save money, Chelsea's face went cold. "This is my wedding," she said, her voice sharp as a scalpel. "I'm not serving my guests chicken breast and mashed potatoes like it's a corporate luncheon." The flowers were $8,000. The photographer was $6,500. The DJ was $3,200. The wedding dress, custom designed by a boutique in Manhattan, was $11,000. Every time I asked if we could scale something back, Chelsea would look at me with wide, wounded eyes. "Don't you want Austin to be happy?" she'd ask. "Don't you want this day to be special for him?" And every time, I would swallow my objections and write another check. By April, I had spent $94,000. By May, we were at $127,000. And Chelsea was still adding things. A champagne tower. A live painter to capture the ceremony. A fireworks display at midnight. I sat at my desk one night, looking at the spreadsheet I'd built. The numbers glowed on the screen like accusations. I had drained my savings account. I had taken a loan against my business. I had canceled the Mediterranean cruise I'd been planning, the one Andrew and I were supposed to take before he died. But I told myself it was worth it. This was my son's happiness. This was family. This was what mothers do. Then came the rehearsal dinner. It was the night before the wedding, a smaller event at a restaurant downtown. Just immediate family and the wedding party. I wore a navy dress, simple and elegant. I had my hair done that afternoon, a subtle updo that took an hour and cost $150. Chelsea arrived late. She swept into the restaurant in a white cocktail dress, her bridesmaids trailing behind her like handmaidens. She didn't apologize for being late. She just kissed Austin on the cheek and sat down at the head of the table, positioning herself like a bride already. Dinner was tense. Chelsea's mother, Donna, was a nervous woman who apologized for everything: the traffic, the weather, the temperature of the soup. Chelsea's father, Frank, barely spoke. He just drank his wine and stared at his plate like a man who had given up years ago. I tried to make conversation. I asked Chelsea's younger sister, Brianna, about college. I complimented the best man, Zach, on his toast. I smiled and nodded and played the role of the gracious future mother-in-law. Then Chelsea stood up. She tapped her fork against her glass and the room went quiet. "I just want to say thank you to everyone for being here," she began, her voice smooth and practiced. "Tomorrow is going to be the most important day of my life, and I'm so grateful to have all of you here to witness it." She looked around the table, her gaze landing on each person like a spotlight. Then her eyes landed on me, and something in her expression shifted. It wasn't quite a smirk, but it was close. "I especially want to thank Janice," she said, gesturing toward me with her wine glass, "for being so generous with her checkbook." The table laughed. It was a polite, uncomfortable laugh, the kind people make when they're not sure if a joke is funny or cruel. I forced a smile. "It's my pleasure," I said. "I just want you both to be happy." Chelsea tilted her head, studying me. "You know, Janice, I was talking to Austin the other day, and we were discussing the future. And I realized something. You've been so involved in the wedding planning. So hands-on. And I think that's wonderful, really. But after tomorrow, Austin and I are going to need some space. We're going to need to build our own life, without someone hovering over us." The room went silent. Not the polite silence of people listening. The sharp, brittle silence of people pretending they didn't just hear something awful. I felt my face flush. "Of course," I said quietly. "I understand." "Good," Chelsea said, smiling brightly. "I'm so glad we're on the same page." She sat down, and the conversation resumed, awkward and strained. I didn't eat the rest of my meal. I just pushed the food around my plate and counted the minutes until I could leave. Austin walked me to my car afterward. The parking lot was dark, lit only by the dim glow of streetlights. I could hear the sounds of the city around us, distant traffic, voices from the bar next door. Mom, don't take it personally, Austin said, his hands in his pockets. Chelsea's just stressed. The wedding's tomorrow, and she wants everything to be perfect. I looked at him, really looked at him. My son. The boy I had raised alone after Andrew died. The boy I had driven to soccer practice, helped with homework, stayed up late with when he had nightmares. And I realized with a cold, sinking clarity that he wasn't that boy anymore. He was a man who stood by while his fiancée humiliated his mother in front of strangers. She told me I'm hovering, I said. Austin shrugged. You kind of are, though. I mean, you've been really involved in the planning. Because I'm paying for it, I said, and my voice came out harder than I intended. Austin flinched. Yeah, and we appreciate that. But that doesn't mean you get to control everything. Control. That's what he thought this was. I didn't argue. I just got in my car and drove home. And when I got there, I sat in my driveway for 20 minutes, staring at the dark windows of my empty house, and I cried. The next morning, I woke up at 6 o'clock. I didn't sleep well. I never do when something's wrong. I made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and stared at my phone. I should have been excited. It was my son's wedding day. But all I felt was a dull, throbbing dread. At 2 o'clock, I drove to the Riverside Manor. The venue was already buzzing with activity. Florists were arranging the orchids. The caterers were setting up the kitchen. The photographer was checking her equipment. I walked into the bridal suite, a large room on the second floor with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the gardens. Chelsea was standing in front of a mirror, her hair half done, wearing the white satin robe. She turned when I walked in, and her expression darkened. What are you doing here? She asked. I stopped, confused. I wanted to see if you needed any help. I thought. I don't need your help, Chelsea interrupted. Her voice was cold, flat. This is my day, not yours. One of the bridesmaids, a girl I didn't know, shifted uncomfortably by the window. The hairstylist kept working, her hands moving mechanically through Chelsea's hair, pretending she couldn't hear. I just wanted to make sure everything was okay, I said. Chelsea turned fully to face me. Everything would be okay if you would stop inserting yourself into every single detail. You've already done enough. Now I need you to leave. I felt the words like a slap. Chelsea, I don't understand. Get out, she said, louder now. You don't belong here. And that's when Austin appeared in the doorway, looking down at his phone, scrolling, silent. I walked out. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just walked out of the bridal suite, down the grand staircase, through the marble hallway, and out to the parking lot. And then I sat in my car and opened my banking app. The venue. $22,000. Pending charge. I clicked on it. Authorization holds. Not yet processed. I called the venue coordinator. Her name was Ellen, a brisk, efficient woman in her 50s who had been nothing but professional through the entire planning process. Ellen, this is Janice Monroe. I need to cancel the wedding. There was a pause. I'm sorry, what? I need to cancel today's event. I'm withdrawing payment authorization. Mrs. Monroe, the wedding is in 2 hours. I'm aware. Another pause. I could hear her breathing, fast and shallow, the sound of panic setting in. Mrs. Monroe, we have a signed contract. The cancellation clause requires 30 days' notice. If you cancel now, you forfeit the deposit, and you'll still be liable for. I'm not canceling, I said. I'm revoking payment authorization. The charges haven't been processed yet. I'm calling my bank to stop the transactions. But the vendors are not my problem. I hung up. Next, I called the caterer. Then the florist. Then the photographer. Then the DJ. One by one, I revoked authorization, canceled checks, and stopped transfers. The custom wedding dress had already been paid for, but Chelsea still owed the boutique $3,000 for alterations. I called them and informed them I would not be covering the balance. The fireworks company. The champagne tower rental. The live painter. All of it. Gone. I sat in my car watching the numbers on my screen shift and change. Pending charges disappearing. Accounts rebalancing. Money flowing back into my accounts like a tide reversing. It took 40 minutes. When I was done, I put my phone down and looked at the manor. Through the tall windows, I could see movement. People rushing. Voices raised. Someone was running. I started my car. I didn't stay to watch. I just drove home. The calls started 20 minutes later. The first was from Austin. I didn't answer. The second was from Chelsea. I didn't answer. The third was from the venue coordinator, Ellen, her voice shrill and desperate. Mrs. Monroe, the caterers are refusing to serve food. They're packing up. The florist is pulling the centerpieces. You need to call me back right now. I deleted the voicemail. Then came the texts. Dozens of them. A flood of panic and rage. Austin, Mom, what did you do? Austin, call me. Austin, the wedding is falling apart. They're saying you canceled everything. Austin, how could you do this? Chelsea, you evil witch. Chelsea, you're pathetic. Chelsea, I hope you die alone. I turned my phone on silent and set it face down on the counter. I poured myself a glass of wine. A 2015 Napa Cabernet, $60 a bottle, a gift from a client last Christmas. I sat on my back patio and watched the sun move across the sky. It was 4:15 when my phone started ringing again. This time, it was a number I didn't recognize. I answered. Mrs. Monroe? The voice was male, deep calm. This is Officer Brennan with the local police. We've received a complaint from Ms. Chelsea Winters. She's alleging that you've engaged in financial fraud and sabotage. I need you to come down to the station to provide a statement. I took a sip of wine. Officer, I haven't committed fraud. I revoked payment for services I was personally funding. The wedding was not a contractual obligation. I was under no legal duty to pay for it. There was a pause. So you did cancel the payments. I withdrew my financial support, yes. Another pause. Ma'am, I'm not sure this is a criminal matter, but Ms. Winters is very upset. She's threatening to press charges. She can threaten whatever she wants, I said. But I suggest you consult with someone in your department who understands contract law before you waste any more of your time. I hung up. The sun was setting now, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. It was beautiful. Peaceful. I felt lighter than I had in months. I didn't hear from Austin for 3 days. When he finally called, I almost didn't answer. But curiosity got the better of me. Mom. His voice was flat, exhausted. We need to talk. I'm listening. The wedding was ruined. Completely ruined. The guests showed up, and there was no food, no flowers, no music. Chelsea was hysterical. Her family was humiliated. People left after 20 minutes. I see. That's all you have to say? You destroyed my wedding, and all you can say is, I see. I set my wine glass down. Austin, I didn't destroy your wedding. I withdrew my financial support for an event where I was told I didn't belong. Chelsea was upset. She didn't mean it. She meant every word. And you stood there and let her say it. Silence. You didn't defend me, I continued, my voice steady. Not at the rehearsal dinner when she mocked me in front of everyone. Not in the bridal suite when she told me to leave. You stood there, scrolling on your phone, and you let her treat me like I was nothing. She's my wife, Mom. You got married? We went to the courthouse the next day. Just us and 2 witnesses. I felt a sharp pang in my chest, but I pushed it down. Congratulations. Don't do that. Don't act like you don't care. I care, Austin. I care that you chose someone who treats people like disposable wallets. I care that you didn't stand up for the woman who raised you. I care that you think I owe you an apology when you owe me one. I'm not apologizing, he said, his voice rising. You sabotaged my wedding out of spite. I revoked funding for an event where I was explicitly told I was not welcome. That's not spite, Austin. That's dignity. He hung up. 2 months later, I was sitting in my office when my assistant, Heather, knocked on the door. Janice, there's someone here to see you. She says she's your daughter-in-law. I looked up from my computer. Send her in. Chelsea walked into my office like she owned it. She was wearing designer jeans and a silk blouse, her hair perfectly styled. But there was something different about her. Her face looked thinner, her eyes tired. She sat down in the chair across from my desk without being invited. I need money, she said. I leaned back in my chair. Excuse me? Austin lost his job. The startup he was working for went under. We're behind on rent. I need you to help us. I studied her face. There was no apology in her expression. No shame. Just the same cold entitlement I'd seen the day she told me to leave. Why would I do that? I asked. Because Austin is your son. Because that's what family does. I smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. You're right. Family does help each other. The family shows up. The family defends each other. But you made it very clear that I'm not part of your family. Chelsea's jaw tightened. That was different. I was stressed. You were cruel. And Austin let you be. He's struggling, Janice. We both are. Don't you care about that? I care, I said. But caring doesn't mean enabling. It doesn't mean funding a lifestyle you can't afford. And it certainly doesn't mean being treated like an ATM. Chelsea stood up, her face flushing. You're a selfish, bitter woman. No wonder Austin never talks about you. Get out of my office, I said quietly. Fine. But don't come crawling back when Austin cuts you out of his life completely. Don't call him begging for forgiveness when you realize you're going to die alone. I stood up, walked to the door, and opened it. Goodbye, Chelsea. She left, her heels clicking sharply on the tile floor. I closed the door and sat back down at my desk. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. From relief. Because I realized something at that moment. I wasn't losing my son. I had already lost him. Maybe I lost him the moment he chose silence over defending me. Maybe I lost him years before that in ways I couldn't see. But what I gained was something more valuable. I gained my self-respect. I gained my boundaries. I gained the knowledge that I would never again let anyone, not even my own son, treat me as less than I deserved. A year later, I sold my accounting firm. I took the proceeds and bought a small house on the coast of North Carolina. It has a porch that overlooks the ocean, and in the mornings, I sit there with my coffee and watch the waves roll in. I joined a book club. I started painting. I adopted a dog, a golden retriever named Biscuit, who follows me everywhere and doesn't care how much money I have or whether I'm useful. Austin called me once, about 6 months after Chelsea came to my office. He left a voicemail. He said he and Chelsea were separating, that things hadn't worked out, that maybe he'd made some mistakes. He didn't apologize. He just said, I hope you're doing okay, Mom. I didn't call him back. Not because I don't love him, but because love isn't the same as letting someone walk all over you. Love isn't funding someone's delusions. Love isn't sacrificing your peace for someone else's comfort. I learned that the hard way. I learned it in a ballroom, standing in a white satin nightmare, being told I didn't belong. And I learned that sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is walk away. If you've ever had to choose yourself over someone who took you for granted, drop a comment below. Let's remind each other that boundaries aren't cruel. They're surviving. And to anyone out there funding someone else's dream while being told you're not good enough, listen to me. You don't owe anyone access to your bank account. You don't owe anyone your dignity. And you don't owe anyone an explanation when you finally decide you've had enough. The day I canceled that wedding, I didn't just revoke payments. I revoked permission. Permission to treat me as less than I am. Permission to use me without gratitude. Permission to discard me after I'd given everything. And in doing that, I found something I'd lost years ago. I found myself. The waves are beautiful this morning. Biscuit is asleep at my feet. My coffee is hot. And I am free. That's the real ending. Not the wedding. Not the courthouse ceremony. Not the angry phone calls or the desperate requests for money. The ending is me, sitting on a porch, watching the ocean, and finally, choosing peace over performance. If that makes me selfish, I'll wear that label proudly. Because I've been selfless my whole life and it almost destroyed me. Now I'm selfish. And I've never been happier. If this story resonated with you, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment about a time you had to set a hard boundary. I read every single one and your stories matter. We're building a community here of people who refuse to be doormats, who choose dignity over obligation, who understand that sometimes the kindest thing you can do is walk away. Thank you for being here. I'll see you in the next one.